Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Sally Pinto and I'm from the Yonkers Newark neighborhood naturally occurring retirement community. We launched back in January of 2020 and we're here to serve seniors 60 plus in Northeast Yonkers. We have lots of fun programs and activities, and we also have a lot of resources for you as well. Our programs include meditation chair yoga, body mind fitness, bingo, and any other programs that you might be interested, like arts and gardening. We have our resource specialist, Alexa Smith, who can help you with finding services and activities out there for you, as well as our nurse, Barbara Simone, who can help answer your health-related questions. We're here for you, we're here for our community, and we look forward to seeing you in our programs. Enjoy.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alexa Smith, the resource specialist with the Yonkers Newark. I'm here to help with application assistance, referrals for home delivered meals, and transportation services will be coming soon. We also offer Zoom activities and Zoom programs. And if you have any other questions or concerns, I'm here to help. Thank you so much and enjoy the program.
Welcome. I'm Barbara Simone, registered nurse. I recently retired from Westchester County's Health Department as a public health nurse. I am now here to try to assist you with any medical or preventive care issues. Enjoy this program, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
Further ado, I introduce Katherine Sutton. Thank you, Katherine, for bringing this program to us today.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate this. We're all doing this from home, obviously, and my two dogs are about to have an argument. So if you hear that, just ignore it. I'm glad to have you here. I thought what I would do today is explain briefly who I am and show you some slides of the kinds of things that I do in gardening. And then we'll open it up for a lot of questions, because it's very important for me to know where you're coming from. I don't know what your levels are. I don't know what your interests are. And if we're going to do this as a series, it's really important that I know that information. I don't want to start talking about something and you find yourself half asleep because that's not what you're interested in. I mean, some of you may have just started gardening. Some of you may have been, you know, the queen bees of your gardening clubs. I don't know. So we'll start with me. I'm basically, you know, a garden designer. Everybody gardens for different reasons. I took classes at the Botanical Garden. I'm also a garden guide at Wave Hill in the Bronx, which of course hasn't happened this year, but that's what I usually do. And I was in the interior design department of a lot of different architectural firms. So to me, exterior design is the same as interior design. I mean, interior, you're figuring out where the couch goes, but exteriorly, you figure out where some of the big bushes go. So it's a lot of the same thing, just ones you're indoors, ones you're outside. So that's basically where I'm coming from. People do garden for different reasons. Some people just like to do vegetables. Some people, you know, insist that they have a big lawn with a perennial border. Other people just like to do annuals. My take on this is I am a flower fanatic. And again, I like to look at the design of my garden. It's a little like painting for me. The garden is the canvas, and then I paint with the flowers and the shrubs and all the things that go into a garden. So we have a water garden, we have a perennial garden, we have annuals. And the primary thing for me is I have no lawn. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to take care of it. And I only live in Yonkers. I'm on the side of a hill by the Bronx River Parkway and the Bronx River. And so I'm only on 1/8 of an acre. But fortunately for me, it's on a slant. So I have 3 different levels. So it makes it look a lot bigger than it really is. It's also manageable. I don't try to do anything that I can't possibly take care of, because as we age, and I'm getting older too, you know, when everything's on a slope, it's a little tough. So I have spent most of my life here, and I've been in Yonkers 35 years. We sort of are leveling and terracing the yard as we go. I also, the main part of my garden is lots of different rooms, garden rooms with pathways in between, because again, there's no lawn, but we have different moods during the day, just like a cat. You know, sometimes it wants to sleep in the sun and sometimes it wants to sleep in the shade. And depending on our mood, we have a porch that we sit on. We have a little gazebo area in the front. You can sit next to the water garden. And we have about 4 different sections where you can really sort of curl up with a book or a cup of tea, or maybe have some friends over. when you don't have a pandemic. I'm speaking generally now, specifically this year. And so it's nice to have those kind of options, whether you want to, it's like, for instance, in March, we sit in the sun a lot, but once the sun starts to come out, we sit in the shade. And different seasons, depending on what you've got, you can move around quite easily. So that's my point of view. I guess we can start the slides and I'll give you an overview of my garden. Okay, there we are. As you can see, it's not very big. And on this 1/8 of an acre is my house and a porch. So what you do is you come down the hill to get in the garage. And I have, as you walk in the door, there's a sidewalk to the, just north of it is the perennials. And then we have a vegetable garden. On the other side, we have flowering perennials and then a hill, which changes every year. When I made this map, it was a silver gray garden, and that's extremely sunny. Like everybody else, when I moved into my house, it was a very shady yard, and we had a big Norway maple on the street, and we had dogwoods on the side and backyard. And of course, they all died, and Mother Nature decided to change my shady garden into a sunny one. So then I had to redesign everything. If you go into the back on the left, you'll see we have a sunny seating area, and it's now become much more shady because we finally put in a new willow, a birch, which is now, we went in during Hurricane Sandy, and 7 years, is it 7 years later, it's just enormous, like 30 feet tall. And then a little staircase that takes you down into the back, where I have a little woodland garden because it's shady, a little place to sort of sun yourself or take a nap, and a pergola that goes all the way across to the garage. It's 50 feet across the whole back, because our properties in my neighborhood, it's an S50 zone, which means your property has to be 100 by, at least 100 by 50. And so the way it's all skewed up, but we had a dogwood there that died, and suddenly we desperately needed shade. So I had this little wisteria that was just kind of starting, and we tried to kill it, and that didn't work. And so we just started building a pergola to hold it up, and now we have 50 feet of wisteria, which in the spring just is a showstopper. All the neighbors stop at the top of the yard. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is the front of the yard. The street is right to the left above this shrubs. You can see I have several different pathways. I have 4 photos of this. This, as you come in the yard and take a left, there's the sort of shady, the silver garden on your left. And the path sort of takes you down to a sitting area. It's very important, I think, to have a focal point at the end of your pathway, so people are really interested in the depth of your garden and are really curious to see what's at the other end. Next. This is the little pathway. It's really a steps. A friend of mine was throwing out her old bricks, and so I took them and had a guy come, and this gets you down into the lower backyard. It's a little dark passageway between my house and my neighbor's house. So I made had them make this nice little steps, and then I took all the hosta that were sort of sprinkled around the property when I moved in, and just put them all. They were just sort of the green ones, not the really very interesting ones. And so I massed them all together against the house, so it's a nice place for them, and they look really good when they're all bunched up together. And at the end, I have a big pot, which also draws your eye down to the bottom of the stairs. Next. This is in the front, coming up from the back. You're going up to the front porch. It was really a hill for years. And again, I have my attitude is that my garden has to be structured, and organized, but it also has to be relaxed. So I didn't want anything too fancy, but we did need a set of steps that go, oh dear, ignore that. We did need steps that went up from the lower level to the upper level. And this, I've used Nature's Cradle in Eastchester. They're very good for landscaping or doing heavy work that you couldn't possibly handle. So this guy built this wonderful little staircase that takes me up to the front. And you can see the hill in the front and the streets behind the hedge. Next. I also love the texture of that. This is the little gazebo area in the front. This used to be very shady, and then all the trees fell down. So then it was bright and sunny. So we found this pergola. I guess you can see it pretty carefully. I hope so. It's a metal structure, looked like a little gazebo. That's what we call it. We found it at the antique garden furniture sale at the Botanical Garden, which is every April. And even if you don't want to buy anything, it tends to be expensive. We always wait till Sunday night, so the prices go way down, and then we go out there at 5 o'clock and buy it at half price and bring it home, which is how we got this gazebo. I have the outdoor furniture there, and on the right you can see there. It looks like the side of a barn, but it's really a retaining wall, because our neighborhood is just filled with retaining walls, all of, I think, which have no permits. But you have to do it because it's such a slopey property level with everybody. This is basically railroad ties that, as they age, which usually happens within a year, it looks like the side of a barn, and it gives me a nice feel. I also have old tools up there on the wall and a window that just helps reflect the garden. I have a little water feature there in the front next to the white begonias, and it's right off the front porch. So we sit out there when we can. And behind it in the back, you'll see lots of miscanthus. It's called miscanthus morning light. It's a very thin, razor thin leafed grass. And that's a very steep, dry, sunny hill. And I really couldn't get up there anymore to take care of it. So I just made a whole wall of these grasses, and they just sit there and look lovely. And then they bloom in the fall. And it's a nice backdrop that I don't have to worry about. Next. Next. Huh. Okay, there's another shot of the little gazebo. It's really my favorite place to sit. And on the right, we have a little table with an umbrella. And my neighbors are right over that wall. It's really a great way to disguise the fact that you're really pretty close to everybody else. And people will walk down the street, which is up on the left, and they have no idea that we're down there, which is great. And you can hang things from it. And I'm now at the point where over this gazebo, I've got a climbing vine, and this picture was taken about 2 years ago. It's much more covered now, and it really gives us a lot of shade in the summer, because as you know, Yonkers summers can be a little warm. Next. That's a view from the top. And I have a rusty old bench on the right there. I got that at the Botanical Garden as well. And it just sits out there all winter. And, it's one of my favorite places to sit. We can sit there in the day and in the night, and we have torches that we can put out there. And it's really a little piece of heaven. Next. And I also love the fact that it looks really nice in the winter time. I think it's important that you have winter interest as well as summer and spring. So there's something going on all the time, although not everything's always blooming all the time. Next. Now this is in the back. This is the pergola. This is the 50 feet of pergola, and this is after the wisteria has bloomed. It really covers over and gets very dense. So even if it's raining, it takes a couple of minutes for the water to get down below. Again, this is old antique furniture that I found in some store, some resale store, and we just sit there and the dappled sun, which is phenomenal. And then you'll see I found some old stained glass windows, so they're hanging from the top. So it really makes like a little living room. And the fence is there because our neighbor's house, which hasn't been painted in, I don't know, 50 years, is not very attractive. It's pretty close, and we didn't really want to see it. So this, again, gives you a nice camouflage and a sense of privacy, and you don't have to look at anything you don't want to look at. And that was not a very expensive area to do. Next. There's the pergola. It's hanging over the water garden. This is the wisteria in the early spring. It comes in the first 2 weeks of May. It's just spectacular, and it smells great. Next. And there's close up. They're huge. They're about a foot long at least, each bloom. Now, of course, when it all falls down, you have to go under there and rake it, but it's worth it for the 2 weeks that it's there. People just come and sit under it and stand under it and smell like Ferdinand the Bull. Next. This is the view up. So when you're sitting there in the middle of the summer and it's hot, having a cup of tea or a cold drink, you look up and that's what you see. I just love that. It's hard to photograph, but it really kills me. Next. Okay, this is another pathway that takes you down to the pergola on the left. you can see the striped seating area that we saw before. And we are naturally on a hill, as I've said 100 times. And so it's very easy to do a little waterfall and a pond. I didn't have to build up a wall and then make the water come down. It's right next to the garage, and it's next to the vegetable area. And it's about 8 by 9. We dug it out of the side of the hill ourselves. My husband did the digging, and I did all the stonework. And again, it's not cemented; it's all drywall. But what's nice about it is it's relaxing. It's like a big puzzle. And if you like that kind of thing, it was fun. And there's nothing fancy. It's a little pump, and it goes around and around and around. And we turn it off in November. We have fish. We sometimes have frogs. We have a heron last year from the Bronx River when it got really, really cold. He decided to come up in my yard and snack because he couldn't get any water, any fish out of the water. And that was all lovely until we realized he was eating fish I'd been taking care of for 10 years. And so we had to go get a net. And suddenly the little nature view was a disaster. I was not very happy. Next. That's the waterfall. And again, if you look on the left, you can see 3 frogs made out of the same, it's cement, but it sort of blends in with the rocks because I don't like anything too bold. And I found that at the Botanical Garden too. It was like $50. Somebody was having, put it on the side, and it's from an old estate. I just thought they were really whimsical. Next. And speaking of whimsy, I like a lot of old things. I don't particularly like new things. I think they give the garden a nice feel, a sort of a timeless feel. And so we have some old watering cans, which make nice little planters. That's on the front steps, and that display changes every year. Next. I also found this cute little hedgehog who's not overly bold. He just sort of sits among the flowers. And, I'm not into really cutesy poo things, but he sort of was charming and he's subtle, and there he is. And you can discover him as you're going around the yard. Next. An old plow that kind of sits in the ferns in the front. I think it's just nice, and it's just there all the time and gives a little focus to the front yard. Next. These are my favorite guys. I bought these at Carlson's, which is going out of business, unfortunately, up on Dobbs Ferry Road, but they have a hen and a chick. And I have it right at the top of the front stairs to the porch, and they're on an old Singer sewing machine that had been turned into a planter. And then I planted little hens and chicks, which are, many of you probably know, are succulents that they just sit there all year in the blazing sun, and they're happy. And I thought it was kind of funny to put the hens and chick plants with the hen and the rooster. Next. And there they are from the back. I just find them delightful. And they're facing the driveway, so you can see this is not a very big piece of property, but it's packed. Okay, next, please. We also have an urn in the front, which people pass when they come by. It's sort of an entrance thing. And there's a little pig. I found him up in Boscobel. And the pig just travels. He's, again, a little focal point. He changes with the seasons. Here he is in the summer. He's got some begonias there in his 2 baskets. Next. Here he is at Christmas time with some lovely balls there staring at the snow. Next. And here in October, he's got pumpkins. And he complements the urn very well, I think. And next. Here he is in the blazing summer with 2 succulents. Well, because you have to water him every day because the baskets are so small, but if it's a succulent, you're pretty okay. Next. And here he is in this early spring with the forget-me-nots and some pansies. And the other thing I wanted to talk about or ask you about is some of you don't have gardens or yards and are interested in indoor plants. Obviously, we could discuss indoor, I guess I said plants, but also, if some of you don't want to do that or bring dirt into your apartments or have pots and things, it's nice to do arrangements. Next. This is an allium. We can talk about different arrangements. I tend to keep things fairly monochromatic, but you can change it according to your taste. These are allium bulbs, flowers that come early in the spring, and then they dry out. And I saved them, and you can spray them either gold or silver, and I just plunk them in a nice pot. You don't have to put any water in there or anything. And they look very festive around Christmas.
What is the name of it?
It's called Allium. Well, it's Allium, A-L-I-U-M. That's the name of the species. This particular kind is called Schubertii. Schubert as in the composer, and then 2 I's at the end. Schubertii. They come back maybe 2 or 3 years and then they disappear again. So I always plant them because even if you, for instance, in the middle of the summer, if a little spot comes up, I just plunk them in the garden. They sort of fill up a blank spot and they wow everybody all the time, which is what you want at Christmas time. Okay, next. These were the peonies, and I just plunked them in a nice vase. It's nice and simple. I think you get to see them better if they're all in one theme. I find with peonies, as much as I love them, it always rains the next day and they're top heavy and they fall over. So even though I'd love to have them like Martha Stewart in my garden and have everybody come and ooh and ah, I find I just have to, I don't have that many, first of all, and I just cut them and put them indoors so they really get a chance to be on display. Next. Again, these are some tulips with, I don't know. The tulips, did I buy those? I don't know. I can't remember. Isn't that awful? But again, I kept it white on white. I think it's, well, it just fits my house better. Although if in the summertime, I will go get, as I go around the garden and I have the cutting garden and the flowers are in bloom, I will make a mixed bouquet. I'm not strictly monochromatic. Next. Yes, now I did buy these because it was at Christmas time, but again, you don't have to be growing all your own flowers. You can easily, if you get out a lot, you can, pick these things up at the fruit and veggie guy, or you can, order them from the store. It's all about how you select and arrange them. So I don't like to have I don't mix up a lot of things. I think it's, for instance, at Christmas time, this made a bolder statement. Next. The other thing I do every year is I make a calendar shots of all my gardens. And the top one is from the porch. I found an old seed bag that said Sutton Seeds on it, and that being my name, I had to, of course, buy it. And that was a sunflower that was just plunked in a vase that looked really good. And then the picture below is a shot of the water garden when it was blooming, and my house is reflected in it. We have sort of a cottagey looking house, and it all just was one of those moments I walked by and I went, uh-oh, Kodak moment. And I took the picture and it worked. And I just use my iPhone. I don't have any special garden equipment, but I have a calendar every year. And if anybody's interested in them, you can buy, I'm in the process of making this year's right now. And they're $20 a piece if you're interested. Not that I'm here to sell them. It came up and I thought, why not if you're interested? Next. This is from 2017. We have a lot of birdhouses on the property, and I just made a collage of the ones that I thought were the best with the birds in them. That was simply a picture I took in June of 2017. So that's a snapshot of my garden, kind of what I do and what my taste level is. If you go to the next slide, I have lots of handouts that I can give you, and I'm not going to go over them right now, but I have my little frog logo, and many people, excuse me, allergies. Many people are, get overwhelmed sometimes. And these are just the basics. Like, your garden soil should look like chocolate cake, and you should have a lot of worms, and, save the little tags of when you're buying. So those are your basic garden smarts. Next. And then let's see what's next. And these are the basic tools you need. Somebody, they advertise all these really cutesy tools, and it's really not necessary. Just, your basic, they have, the pruners and the scissors and the I have different size trowels, but I don't know if any of you watch a lot of garden shows on the British BritBox streaming service, but they always have fabulous sheds and greenhouses and 1,000 tools, and I don't have that. You just do with what you can. Next, please. And this is going to the marketplace. A lot of people seem to be very nervous about going. They don't know what to ask or what they're looking for. And so these are some tips that you might want to have. There are certain garden places that, well, I shouldn't say, but there's some like the big box stores. A lot of the people who are in the sales there, they don't know what they're looking at. They can't tell you anything about your plant, and you really need to know. So a place like Rosedale, even though it's more expensive, they have lots of people there who know what they're talking about and can really help you out. Because, you know, even I go and I go, what is this? And what kind of, what, you know, something strikes you at the marketplace and you think, oh, I'd like to have this, but how big does it get? And, you know, sometimes it doesn't have a tag, and sometimes the tag doesn't tell you everything. So you need to go to a place where you feel really comfortable. Next. And these are some money saving tips, little things that I've probably told you all along. You know, when you rake up your leaves or have your leaves raked up, do not under any circumstances throw them away. Put them under your shrubs. They're wonderful mulch. Mother Nature meant them to be the mulch, you know, the whole life cycle. They didn't mean to go in a bag, have Yonkers pick it up, and then you're stuck in the spring running around buying big bags of mulch from the big box stores. And there are nurseries who will grind them up for you if you have big maple leaves, for instance, but I have lots of little ones from the Pergola, so it works okay. On the upper left-hand corner, you know, it shows flowers that are, I found old timber logs and with holes in them, and you can make those planters. You don't have to go buy fancy things all the time. I've already shown you the old tools that were my father's. They ended up on that retaining wall, you know, my friend and her recycled bricks. But there are all different kinds of ways you can save money. Next. And this is basically how you plant a plant. It's really easy, you know, because it's all about, I always say this is like going to McDonald's. It's all about having, you know, ingesting the right kind of foods. If you just ate McDonald's all the time, you wouldn't be a very healthy person. And it's the same with plants. Whatever's in the soil is what's going to make this plant happy. So it's very important you put organic, organic, what is the word? I'm having a senior moment here. Anyway, it's organic fertilizer in that is slow release, and that you have lots of worms. And then when you get your plant, a lot of them are pot bound. So just cut it, make a cross on the bottom and spread it out a little bit. And I always water the hole first and then plunk the plant in. And I'm not a big fan of irrigation systems because they never seem to go with the weather. But we can discuss something like that at another time. I think that's it. Is that it, correct? I think that's it. So I'd like to hear from you guys about what kind of things you're interested in, what kind of things you do, what kind of things you'd like to learn about or hear about. Maybe you can give us some tips on things that we ought to be doing, because you never stop learning. And Mother Nature is, you know, you think you're in charge of your garden, and then Mother Nature takes over and whammo, you know, the big tree that was in your yard yesterday isn't there today, and you suddenly went from shade to sun. And you know, she's really running the show. So you have to constantly make adjustments. And that my design is basically set up, but I have to make adjustments all the time depending on the weather, plants that didn't come up. We all make mistakes. So anyway, I'm going to shut up now and let you guys talk about what you're interested in or what you'd like to know about, or all of the above.
Hey, Catherine, this is Allison. This was an amazing presentation. So thanks for all the tips and the pictures.
Oh, good.
I have a wisteria question for you. So we have one in our yard, and it's been there for a good 20 years, covered mostly by an oak tree that Hurricane Sally took down. So the year after we took it down, the wisteria bloomed like crazy. And it's never bloomed since then. We call it the monster because it grows so fast. We probably cut it down like 3-4 times throughout the summer. But how are we going to get this sucker to bloom? I'm not in Yonkers. I'm on the South Shore of Long Island. Our soil is garbage because it's sandy and we constantly feed it. But I really miss those gorgeous blooms.
In theory, well, it loves a lot of sun. My wisteria's been there for 35 years. I should explain, everybody has different kinds of soil. Our soil is riverbank soil. I took a class once in this and I said, well, I'm not right on the river. And the teacher said to me, lady, 50,000 years ago, your house was underwater. I went, okay. I'm not sure soil makes a big difference with this. You might want to put some peat in there or something organic. not Miracle Grow or anything like that. That's like Coca-Cola to me. It gives you a boost and then you feel terrible a couple hours later. It does like sun. The thing about pruning is you're only supposed to prune it in January, if you prune it at all. And then after it blooms, I usually it gets a haircut because it hangs over everything. But you're not supposed to be pruning it all the time. It needs a chance to set the buds. That may be part of the problem.
Okay.
And
Because
I really do it in January, but I don't anymore. It just goes nuts.
yeah, that's our problem. Ours is over a gazebo, and it grows onto our neighbor's fence and into their yard and up, it's everywhere. It's completely crazy. So, we're not, yeah, I mean, maybe we're pruning it too much, but we've got to trim it throughout the year.
Yeah, no, I would only, if you prune it at all, prune it after it, like in January, and then it sets the buds.
Okay.
And after it blooms, you go cut it back. But I never quite know how rampant mine is until it's spring, and I look at my neighbor's garden. He's got purple vines all over the trees, but he seems to like it. I always, check with your neighbors. Yeah, I just wouldn't prune it so much, just once. If I wouldn't at all prune it, I wouldn't prune it this year and see what happens.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Anybody else?
I have a question. The neighbor has these gorgeous colored hydrangeas. I would love to have that. And I thought you could do a cutting and grow them, but I haven't been successful yet. He lets me cut. They let me cut from there, and I did it, maybe towards the end of the summer, or maybe it was September already. Maybe that was too late. I don't know. But so what I did is I kept them in water for a day, and then there's growth hormone. Maybe that's a bad thing. I dipped it in that, and then I stuck it in the dirt, and then I tried to mist it, but it just started to dry up.
Did you put it in the corner of the pot or in the middle?
Actually, I guess more towards the edge than the middle.
I know in the British shows, they always stick them in the little corner of the pot. I don't have a good sunny window for all these things. I used to do all that kind of stuff, and then I gave up, and then I just go buy one. Let's see. Did you cut a nodule? Maybe you cut it in the wrong place.
Maybe.
You can't just do the stem. You have to have nodules on the, and then you take off.
I thought I did, but
and
maybe
then you take the top leaf.
Yeah, I took when it looked like new growth coming out of the plant. That's when I took a cutting. But
okay, then get rid of all the fluffy stuff at the top. It basically looks like a stick in a pot.
Okay.
Because all the energy is going into those leaves and not into making the roots.
Okay.
I can suggest you maybe leave one little leaf at the top and cut off all the side leaves and everything. So it's just basically a stick, but you've got little nodules in the soil. That's where the roots are going to come out.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Try that. Otherwise, you have to go buy one. I don't know. I used to save things all the time. And that's the other thing. A good gardener knows when to throw it out. And it kills you, but you can't go into mourning. You can't save every leaf, every shrub. You just think, and with great heavy heart, you say, so long, sorry. But because my aunt did that. She saved every leaf, and her whole house was it was a mess. But maybe you like that. I don't know. I didn't.
One quick, can I have another? Azaleas, do they need to be fed? Is there something?
In the spring. They like acid soil. So you buy a thing called Hollytone.
Hollytone.
Okay.
There's a company called Epsoma, Epsoma, and they have Plantone, Hollytone, Tomatotone. I usually, if it's an acidic soil, I use Hollytone. If it's just regular gardening, I use Plantone. You can also buy acid granules, and you can put that around. Azaleas like to be really, really acid. And they're in the same family as rhododendrons.
Okay, but the spring is when you do that.
I would do it early spring so that they're, going to be able to drink it, absorb it. Also, they do not like sun. They like shade.
Okay.
Although I have one in the sun that's been there when I moved in, and it seems to be okay. But it's, you have to break the rules. You can carefully follow things, and then it turns out it doesn't work, or you do something differently than what says, and it's fine.
Okay.
So you never know. There are lots of guidelines, but there's no strict rule for anything, I don't think. And sometimes, like echinacea, the coneflowers, they hate my yard. I don't know what it is. They don't bloom. And yet I can grow other things that nobody else can. Oh, it's just odd.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else have a question, or
Yeah, we have some in the chat, my dear. So a couple of questions came in privately and then a couple publicly. So for privately, somebody's asking, how do you use a glass plant watering globe or bulb? Have you heard about that? You kind of invert them, you fill them with water, and then you put them into the
you can do it
soil.
with bottles and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the concept behind it? They want to know, and can they do it too much? I mean, how much to fill in it, and are they working with every plant?
Is this indoors or outdoors?
It's indoors.
Oh yeah, one of the main problems with indoor plants is people always overwater them.
Yes.
It's better to underwater than overwater. The plant will let you know when it needs water. It'll get a little droopy. But if you overwater, and I know it's like having pets. You just love your little plant. You want to take care of it every day. And no, if it gets too wet, you get mold, you get aphids, you get all sorts of horrors. And then the leaves get mushy. So underwater than overwater.
Okay. And using the globes is fine with any indoor plant, right?
It depends on the size of the plant.
Okay.
A little one, no. It just, come by and water it and go. I mean, I would only check on your plants once a week, your indoor, but I know the apartment buildings and houses can get really hot in the winter.
Yes.
But it's better that you put them on a tray of pebbles or something like that.
Oh.
Or a dish, and you can put lots of pebbles on it and then put them on top. So they get, and put the water in the pebbles. And that way it will evaporate and keep the plant nice and moist.
That's great.
If you have an extremely dry apartment or something, you can get a humidifier from the drugstore and let it go. But I wouldn't soak those roots, no. Okay. Try to get the humidity up in the room.
Got it. And then also in the private chat, I had someone bought a very special hanging plant in a kind of pyramid, upside down pyramid kind of holder, and there's no drainage in that. So how would they know how much water to do it? That's hanging on their porch, so they're not getting the rainwater. I know it's a specific question.
Well, they have those things for outdoors too, when you can do your tomatoes and stuff in these bags outside, but there's usually a hole at the bottom so it can drip.
Okay, there's no hole in this one, they told me in the chat.
And well, they should probably put an attractive bowl or something underneath, because no plant should sit in a thing that you can't drain. It can't drain. So
okay, so make a hole and drain it.
It's got to drain somehow. Yeah.
Okay, so that's
again, the roots get too wet, they're not happy.
Got it. Now we have a nice chat from E to publicly to everybody. What can one do with a shady hill where grass has eroded away? There's a heavy tree canopy. The lawn care people have to drive their machines over this area. So if you have any recommendations for this.
Well, you're talking to somebody who got rid of her lawn for that very reason. And lawn care people, I always call them the blow and go guys. They're not really into lawn care particularly. They want to buy their chemical products. That's what they want you to do. Because I'm really an organic gardener, because you don't want to kill the birds, the bugs, and all the stuff that's in your yard, because even though there's some bad bugs, the birds will eat those, and bigger good bugs will eat the bad bugs. So on a dry, it's a shady hill.
Yes, it says a heavy tree canopy. Yes.
Okay, that's when you can do something like a wonderful ground cover that thrive in the shade. You can do a thing called, because my neighbor's got that, and the person who lived there before said, "Oh, I can never grow anything under here." Well, one day I went over and I took a few things, and they're fine. Lamium is one of them, Lamium, and it blooms. It's got a sort of a variegated little leaf, and it's got It blooms either pink or white, Lamium. You can Google any of these things, they'll come right up. There's Ajuga, A-J-U-G-A. They have a copper colored leaf and a wonderful purple flower in the spring. There's the old Pachysandra. Not, a lot of people don't like Pachysandra, but it does have its purpose. So, and I also, if you put a ground cover up there, it will really retain the soil. It'll keep the erosion down, and you'll get at least a texture, which is great. And then you don't have to worry about anybody mowing anything. What else can I tell you about? I would try, Lamium is nice because it's a light color. There's Sweet William, or Woodruff, W-O-O-D-R-U-F-F, or Sweet William. What else have I got? I would start with those three and see if you like any of those.
All right, so there's a question about spelling Lamium. So it's L-A-M-I-U-M?
Yeah, Lamium.
Okay, great.
And I like it because it's got a light leaf but a flower. And so in the shade, it's nice to have a light leaf. It's got a little dark edge and a light middle.
Yes, great. Okay, that's wonderful. Now I have another question about plant music or playing music to plants. You know how we do music therapy for people. So
And apparently in utero it helps too. Oh, fine. You do whatever you want with your, I mean, sure, your plants would love it, I guess.
maybe people would love it too. I don't know.
Well, if you're in a happy home, the plants will be happy, I guess.
Okay.
Sure, why not?
Sounds good. That's great. Do we have any other questions? Let's see. You can unmute yourself if you'd like. We have that feature enabled.
I have a question. Hopefully you can hear me. How about growing herbs in your home?
That's tough unless you have a really sunny window. Your really sunny window, herbs they don't like great soil. They don't like to be wet. So do not put them on the tray of pebbles. It depends. I don't really have a lot of luck with that, but I have a house it's a wonderful old stone house, but not blazing sun. If you have a sun porch or something, yeah, that's good. Just they don't like it really fertile soil, but yeah, I would try. Yeah, it could be done. I mean, my sister does it. She's in Lyme, Connecticut, and she's got a lot of sun. But I would stick to the basics like sage, rosemary, the tougher plants, I think. I mean, well, you can try anything. Again, it's all experiment. When I started gardening, I didn't know I didn't know a tomato from in real life I did, but I remember I started with a tomato plant and peanuts. And I thought, why am I planting peanuts? I didn't even, better you start with something simple and then try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I mean, I try and do what you can, but you can grow herbs indoors, but they're not going to be as lush and wonderful as outdoors.
And how about, you had mentioned tomatoes. You see all these commercials, or they used to, on growing tomatoes indoors, and what vegetables, or is that totally outdoor?
For me, that's totally outdoor. Yeah. Tomatoes, I feel very strongly that you eat in season if you can. So I eat tomatoes. I grow tomatoes and I eat them in the summer and the spring and the fall. But in the winter, I get canned tomatoes because they're really much better. So you have those, your menu changes, obviously. You're not going to have the sliced tomato with the mozzarella and the basil, but that's okay. I eat that the other 3 seasons. Canned tomatoes are best in the winter.
I bring my herbs in. I have them out in the patio. I have an acre of land, so but I have a big patio. The rosemary does make it.
Yeah.
And I keep them alive a little longer. The sun porch isn't fully heated. It can be heated, but it's got electric heat. But I've got nice sun coming out of there. But I was able to keep my fuchsia, which is not a thing.
Wow.
Whole year. I was like shocked that it stayed alive. My strawberries are the other thing that stays out there very well. I'm able to keep them going.
Well, plants like it a little on the cooler side. Like I know outside right now, but damp, and I mean suddenly some of my plants are really standing up and saluting. They look fabulous. They don't like it really hot. Even if you buy an annual that says full sun, they need a little shade at some point during the day. I mean, you can watch things like snapdragons collapse because It's tough. They like it a little cooler.
Yeah, I've seen some things back for the cooler, yeah.
And it sounds like your indoor sunroom, which is a little cooler, is just the place.
Yeah, for the keeping them over. And some of it goes dormant too, which is also great. I'm able to dormant the plant and then bring it back. I've actually have 2 planters outside that has grass, and I don't know what the other thing is, that I actually put in the garage as the winter. And some of it comes back. Some of course, like impatiens, I have to replant them. But the
Right.
my
Is the garage attached to the house?
yes,
Oh, see, mine isn't, so the garage freezes, which is too bad.
yeah, no,
It's lucky then.
Yeah, I mean, I just bought a planter with a lot of different plants in it. Some of them had annuals, some of them had perennials. The perennials seem to go dormant as long as the roots don't get frozen.
Exactly.
Yeah, so bringing plants in and dormanting them helps too, because then you can put them back out in the
Right.
thing.
That's another thing you can do now at this time of year is if you go to garden centers, some of them are having 50% off. So that the top of the plant doesn't look so great, but roots will grow through December. So you can sometimes get some real bargains at this time of year. I mean, you can tell if it's not a healthy plant, but you know, some of them just don't get so voluminous and lovely, and so they try to sell them off because they don't want to keep the inventory. But the root balls are great, and you can plant those outdoors until here go the dogs. They will grow through December. So you just want to leave them established. I've got a bunch of them out now.
Yeah.
They aren't pretty, but they're living. Pardon me?
Mine probably grow through to about the end of November. I'm in Dutchess, so it's a little bit.
Oh, right. Is it in zone 6 or 5 or?
Probably 5 or 6. I'm not sure. But I do, I'm in the valley. I come down from Thornstock, so it's not like if you go through the colder, you can have like a 5-degree difference, but yeah.
Wow.
But you did tell me something I didn't know. I got a corn plant very late this season. I bought it from a nursery that didn't send it to me, and it's growing, but it's good to know that I'm hoping that it'll come back because I've been successful with corn plants before in my property, but and I moved to a different spot. So I'm going to hopefully this will come back next year because they have nice attractions for.
Well, that's good. It's sometimes you just have to move things around. Some years. Yep. What's normally our butterfly bushes are very tough. And I had one year that just went, that's it, I'm done. You think, really, what happened to you? And I didn't see any mold underneath. And they're like us. Some of them can get a little finicky, but it's good to move them around. I move things all the time, sometimes in the middle of the day, which you're not supposed to do. But, I said, it's your garden is your laboratory. So try and before you throw things out, see what you can. It'll it's happy or not where you have it. And the other thing is that the motto should be, the $5 plant goes in a $50 hole. So it's all about spending money on the soil and the fertilizer and making sure that it's got lots of worms and bugs and stuff in the soil. And then, plunk in a silly little plant and it'll really surprise you. Because some people buy a $50 plant and throw it in the dirt and you think, no, what does the dirt look like? I took a class once at Botanical Garden about soil. That's when I was told that my house was underwater 10,000 years ago. And the teacher said, he went around to everybody, you had to bring in a bag of your soil. And, he said, I can tell you where you live just by your soil. One guy was from Virginia, his soil was very red. Some people, like the other woman had just said, she's at the beach, so it's sandy. And he would squish it, and sometimes it held, if it's clay, it'll hold a lot. If not, one lady came in, her soil was beige. And he said, oh, lady, I know where you live. You live in the Bronx in an apartment house, and there are a lot of dogs nearby. So this poor woman couldn't grow anything. But they got to me, and he went, oh, my God, riverbank soil. And that's how I knew I had riverbank soil, because you get a lot of shale and good loamy things over the thousands of years. So we have very good soil here, which I think really helps. And it drains well because we're on the side of the hill. If you're actually planting on the hill, then that's hard because it runs off. That's why the other woman's losing all her, the soil's eroding under that tree. But, it's really important that the soil is good. I just amended over the years. You just keep putting in good stuff. And I'm not talking about Miracle Grow. I would get any of the Ipsoma product. They now at Rosedale will sell bags of chicken manure, bat guano, all that kind of stuff. It's really great. And if you live near a farm or have a friend who has chickens, just, you know, get some of that leftover stuff. It's good.
Never thought of that.
So we have one more question here. My houseplants are potted and each sits in a saucer where the roots absorb water from the saucer. I keep the water level at about 1/8 of an inch high. Is this a good practice? They seem to be happy.
Well, in general, I wouldn't recommend putting the roots right in the water, but if they're working and they're happy, I wouldn't. If it ain't broke, I wouldn't fix it. If it's working for her, great. If they're happy, just enjoy them. Money plant, please. Somebody else has a question about money plants. We can't hear you, Sally.
Have a money plant, pile of declining health. It has only a few leaves from which are very small, and now new growth tip is barely growing. Any ideas? Thought supposed to be in a moist and soil, but trying to water less, maybe 1 to 2 times a week in case it's too wet.
I'm not an expert on money plants, but my guess is it's too wet. It needs to dry out. You can always put your finger in the soil and that'll tell you whether it needs more water or not. If it's damp, When it starts to get a little flaky on the top, then you put the water in. But otherwise, you got to remember whatever's on the surface, it's much wetter underneath. It sounds like it's being overwatered, but that's without a visit. I don't know much about money plants, but house plants, as I said, tend to get overwatered no matter what they are.
How about the bamboo plants that you see that you have indoors? They're in pebbles.
Yeah, fine.
Oh, okay.
I just don't overwater it.
Okay, I got to go. If you have any bonsai, my last 3 died. If any tips could, just give them to me or Z. They keep dying. I have, yeah.
I
Tell me
heard that
about-
they're really hard to grow. Is that true?
Yeah, they really are. You can call the New York Botanical Garden, because I'm not an expert in everything, obviously. You can call the New York Botanical Garden and also the Cornell Cooperative Extension in Valhalla. They're all, just Google everything. And they have a question and answer people.
I guess we also want to get an idea. This was a garden lovers indoor and outdoor. We wanted to get an idea from folks what kind of what you'd like Katherine to talk about next time. I get a feeling that we have a mix of indoor and outdoor folks here. So if you'd like to unmute and say what your interests are, we'd love to hear them.
Can I butt in just for a second?
Absolutely.
We don't always have to talk about plants. We can talk about designing your garden and what your site looks like. I have a whole questionnaire that I can also send you. When I talk to people about, and I usually tend to design smaller gardens. When I talk to the client, my first question always is, well, what are the sun patterns? And I can't tell you how many people say to me, well, let's see. When I have coffee in the morning, the sun comes in over there. And so they don't really, there's a lot you really have to think about first, like who's going to use your garden? Do you have any animals? Do you want a high maintenance or low maintenance garden? What's your traffic pattern? Where are you located? What's the terrain? There's a whole lot of things. So we can talk about just basic design. We can talk about hardscaping your garden. We can talk about growing vertical things, because sometimes we're just, blocking out your neighbors. Even if you're just on a porch in your apartment house, how do you block off the porch next door? There's a whole lot of subjects we can talk about. It just doesn't have to be plants. So I just want to throw that out there, because they all come into play. Or you can think about it and, email Sally and we can take it from there if you're not sure.
Yeah, they can email me or Z and we can take it from there, because this was very nice, a very calming presentation, very calming. Loved to see the pictures and how you made your home an oasis, really. An oasis,
Yeah,
different gardens, and you really made it work for you. I love that.
It's
Well, particularly
incredible.
in the pandemic, it's become extremely, this is my little, oh, it is an oasis. And my husband right now, his dementia, he's got some problems going on. And so he just loves to sit there, and it makes him happy and it makes me happy. And I don't get it so overly manageable. I mean, I only have what I can deal with, which is important too, because otherwise then it becomes a job.
That's a great point. I really like that because, you know, you want to find that balance between having something that's a chore versus it's a joy. I do have a couple of suggestions in the chat. We had flower arranging for the holidays, and
Right,
if,
that's
for next time, and wreath making, if you have any tips on that for next time, and also terrariums, if you have any suggestions on terrariums for next time. So
yeah.
those are all in the private chat here. So like you're just making everybody creative. This is great.
Well, once you start thinking, one thing leads to the next.
Totally. It's all connected. I love this. This
You
is
know, just tall plants, short plants, fat plants, plants that, I mean, they're just vines. I mean, there's just, you could always just keep going.
Yeah, we also had in the private chat, somebody wants to encourage to have more birds.
Birds. Oh, okay. I got 1,000 birds in my car. Now they're mostly sparrows, but I love, a friend of mine said, this is like a Disney movie in the spring when all the babies come, you know, and there's all this chirping. And they said, doesn't this drive you nuts? I said, well, it's not all year. You know, for a month, I'm happy to listen to the little birdies chirping and jumping around, and they become very tame. I just love having the birds flying around.
We have one more question. Top of soil, okay, from E. The deer and pest resistant plants, shady property. And a second part of that, and E, you can always unmute just in case I'm not messing up. I'm messing up your question. How long did it take to develop your multiple gardens?
Well, you know, I started out, and of course I was ready to build Rome in a day, and that didn't happen. I would say, I mean, when I can give you some pictures of what my garden looked like before. It was basically lawn, just hills with lawn, a couple of big rhododendrons. That was about it. And bit by bit, you sort of take one, what's really good is to do a master plan, you know, design the whole thing. Like, I think I'd like to have this, that, and this, and then only concentrate on one section, begin with one section. So if, you know, your curb appeal is really important, then just work on that 1 year. You can't do it all in 1 year, but it's good to start with you know, think big and then start small when you actually put it in implementation. So I would say the first 5 years, I was just like a mad woman, and the whole sections I worked on and thought I found the perfect agent for perfect solution are long gone. Like that hill where I now finally put in the those tall grasses. I just thought, just for heaven's sake, stop worrying about this. Stop killing yourself up there. There was a little poison ivy. I mean, it was just never worked. And I thought, just put in these grasses, it looks great, and I don't have to even. I just wave at them. I just, you know, that's it. They're there and they make me happy, and I don't have to deal with them.
Cool. And how about the deer and pest resistant plants?
Okay.
Shady
the only,
property?
I'm near Sarah Lawrence, so I mean, well, I don't have deer, although one morning they were standing at the top of my driveway. We almost fell over because sometimes they cross Central Avenue. I don't know how to do it and get into where we are. There's no plant that's deer proof. There are plants that are deer resistant. Now, my sister lives in Lyme, Connecticut, which is loaded with deer, clearly. That's where Lyme disease came from. And I went on a garden tour there once. Now, again, it's a really high class, really Tony area. But it was all about the design, because they only had, each property had about 5 of the same plants. They had a lot of herbs. They had things that were smelly. No hosta or anything like that, which is like, you know, chocolate to deer. But what they did was they took these basic 5 plants and then they sort of made great sweeps of them, or they used them as borders. And so we made it look quite pretty, but it wasn't a horticultural tour. The other thing you can do, and I went to a lecture once on this subject, and well, first of all, if you want to spend $1 bazillion and have a fence around your yard, that's really, to make it look attractive, you really have to make it look very architectural. And I don't think anybody has that kind of money, or do they want to spend it. Maybe in Lyme they can afford it. But one of the things this man recommended, this guy recommended about the deer, is if you have a man in your house, have him mark the territory. Have them just pee outside on stones, urinate, I should say, sorry. They should urinate on the stones or on the driveway, because otherwise it just gets absorbed into the grass. And if you're not, there's no man in your house, you know, you can pee into a jar and go out there and us gals, and sprinkle it around. And you just do this all the time. Now you can do it at night, so when your neighbors can't see you or whatever. But you know, you can be discreet about where you particularly live. But it kind of works. They'll smell. Oh, and particularly apparently if you have a hamburger beforehand, they'll smell carnivore. Seems, and it works in my yard. We're the only yard that doesn't have bunny rabbits. I also have 2 little dogs, but we don't have bunny rabbits, and everybody else does. I don't have deer, but I do have little critters, skunks, raccoons. Some of them, I don't know what they are, but they eat my things sometimes. Yeah, so have your man mark the territory. I know it's kind of horrifying. I have a friend who's a doctor who won't do it. I said, oh, for crazy. But anyway, yeah. And then a couple of basic plants that they won't eat. I mean, on Long Island, what they do a lot of is they put cages around their plants, but I don't like that look particularly.
Actually, this year I've had less trouble with the deer. I don't know why. So you get more, and it really depends what's growing or what's thriving better. But getting back to birds, I have jojo berries, and we put them in our garden, and they did very well in the spring. The summer they didn't like, and now they came back, and they've attracted more different varieties of birds. My first bunch of birds that I had were hummingbirds.
Wow.
Attraction. So a jojo berry might be, you know, a nice one to have in just one. We have too many, but
that sounds good.
Yeah. So, yeah, and this is the first time you know, as you said, experimenting, we bought them and we decided to try to use them, and they don't taste, they're supposed to be very healthy for you, but they're not a taste I like. So, and neither do my husband, but we have a lot of them and the birds love them.
I was going to say good for them.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do is if you know, do not cut back your perennials once they dry up. I know it makes your yard look a little messy, which some people don't care for, but it also attracts a lot of birds. A lot of birds. And when I put my pumpkins out this year, as I always do, but for the first year, they didn't wait until I was finished. I usually then slice the pumpkin when Halloween has left. I put them on the other side of my driveway, and the squirrels and the birds are going to come and eat the seeds. Well, this year they decided to just dive right into my displays and have eaten. I have the most disgusting looking pumpkins. They're slimy and wet, and they're full of seeds. They're like spit all over the property. It's terrible. But it's kind of, I guess, what are you going to do? And if you do feed them in the winter with a feeder, if you can afford it, buy whole seeds, whole sunflower seeds, because then you don't get the shells spit all over the place, and that can attract rats. We had that problem once, maybe because we're near the river, but pardon me, I have allergies. But you don't want to get rats. And then they rot on the ground, and then the ground feeders will not go for the bird seed. They because they have to shell the seeds, and it's just too much work for them. But like when you have sunflowers, and when they get old, just let them droop over and dry so the birds can eat the sunflowers.
This was absolutely wonderful. We got a lot of great questions.
Okay.
Catherine, and we have a lot of ideas for our next one. And we'll also, if you don't reach out to us, we'll try and reach out to you to see what to narrow this nice suggestions down. So unless we don't have any other questions, Z?
How do you want to?
We actually do have a couple more questions. It's like,
oh, great.
I feel like everybody is just coming out of the woodwork. People are asking about winterizing because now is the time as the temperatures get low. They're saying about like putting burlap sacks around things. These are people who like are not used to having to do this and are not sure about like how to proceed. I guess with smaller bushes you would put burlap. I'm not sure.
Rhododendrons are okay. They'll curl up like little pencils, their leaves. Do we know what shrubs we're talking about? Usually fruit tree or fruit shrub. Anything shrubby should probably be covered.
Okay, so yeah, no, they didn't give me anything. They just said that how do I winterize? Like they just moved and they inherited a whole mess of stuff which they don't even know. So yeah.
Oh wow. They need a home visit by some professional.
Definitely. I love your map. Speaking of professional, that's great. I think that this is wonderful, even if we create our own map, just having something to refer to.
Yeah, just a sketch. I mean, we were on a garden tour, so I had to make this map. Usually I keep that's the other thing. I keep a garden diary, and it's big. And I started out, let me just show you this. This was right after 9/11. I don't know why it was that particular year. And I started out with Whoops, pardon, it's a mess. Lovely little, calligraphy and little drawings and just a moment here. Sorry. Little
I
maps.
find it fascinating that you have a garden diary. Like people keep regular diaries. Why not a garden diary? That's just
Well,
like
I had
phenomenal.
1,000 photos, all this stuff. It was so nice. Now I just slam the stuff in. I mean, the handwriting is deteriorated. Now it looks like this, it's just, bleh. But I can read it. And because I on every September, and I wrote down what worked and what didn't work and what was a surprise. And then, because you forget, come March, you think, oh, what was that? You also should make a map of your garden. Again, I don't make pretty pictures anymore. I just make the outline of the map and put circles where things are. And sometimes I just write, big fuzzy blue thing, if I don't know the name of it. I don't garden in Latin either. Sometimes I do, but I mean, I know a few Latin names, but basically I just use the English names. I'm not one of those gardeners. But it's very important to keep lists. So in September, or maybe even now, you could write down what worked, what didn't, because things are still there. So you can sort of write down what's there, because believe me, you forget. Like, oh my God, what was that? And keep the tags when you buy new things. I tend to forget that, but it's really important. Because then you think, oh, what's that big blue fuzzy thing? I didn't write it down. Yeah. But you have to keep notes from year to year. And it doesn't have to be ready for an art award. Just get it in there.
Yeah. No, as a librarian, I totally empathize with you. Notes are great. We like notes.
Yeah.
Well, the older you get, too, you forget.
Yep.
Which is a problem.
Catherine, I've really learned a lot today, even myself.
Oh, good.
Experimenting, and you've also validated some of the things I have picked up, and put aside. I'm going to have to start taking notes, though. You're right on that. And yeah.
And sometimes what I do is just draw arrows, like put it here,
Yeah.
or that moves there. Or,
Yep.
And nobody's going to see this but you. So,
Right.
Unless you're entering a contest, which I don't know why I must have thought I was in the beginning, but once you really get into the process, you think, who cares what this looks like? Just get it in there.
And it's so funny. I have been neglectful of my inside plants for a long time. I'm not a big waterer. So you really validated that it's the only way they survived. It's when I'm overwatering them.
Well, I have one indoor plant somebody gave me a year ago. I put him in a nice basket. He's very cute. He lives in the living room. And when I walk, every once in a while I walk by and go, oh, that should be watered. And I water it. And it's because it'll tell me when it starts to look a little funny, I water it. It's okay. Now it's a dumb, basic store-bought houseplant. I don't even know what it is. But sometimes you like a little green in your living room.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
And if that's all you have because you're in an apartment, that's a whole nother thing. But then there are all sorts of nice ways to set that up and make it attractive, not just a bunch of dumb things on a windowsill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It can be really attractive. Does anybody, if you get BritBox, which I don't know how many of you do, but I'll throw this out there. It's one of the streaming channels. And on Friday nights at, well, whatever, it doesn't matter what time we get it, because in Britain it's 9 o'clock, but that's midnight for us. Anyway, it's called Gardner's World. It's on every Friday night, comes in the same day as they make it in Britain. It shows on Britain Friday night, and then we get it. And Monty Don is the host, and he and his dogs, he has the most unbelievable garden you'll ever see in your whole life, with more greenhouses and all this stuff. And it's, it's sort of your ideal thing. And he obviously has a staff in there that helps him out. But I really learn a lot from it. And he's got a lot of good points. And I'm always taking some notes. Now, we can't get all the plants they get over there because they're more temperate climate, but I find it really, really helpful. Particularly, and they have now, because it's a pandemic, they have people sending in little bitty videos of their gardens, and a lot of them are indoors in apartments. And what they have done creatively is amazing. So you get some good ideas for that too. Well, I don't want to keep going on and on, but what about if anybody wants one of those handouts? How do I get that to people? Or send it to you and you can mail it to them?
Yep, send it to us and we'll mail it or email it. Yep.
Okay, yeah, so just let me know which ones you need.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, I think this has been wonderful. Our first gardening program indoors and out. And I'm glad I'm sure plants all over Westchester County are happy, and Dutchess and wherever you are in New York State. So
And everywhere, because once they get the recording, they can watch it
there you
anywhere in the
go.
world.
There you
Well, that's
go.
the other thing is, where do you buy your plants? What are some good nurseries? Because I'm always looking.
Ooh, that's good. Yes. We got a lot of topics. Sally's writing madly, I can see. So we'll do a follow-up. So we agreed on the 16th of November, which is a Monday at
Right.
1 p.m. So we're looking forward to it. We'll have a flyer with more information. And we're so grateful to you for your expertise and sharing your
Well,
knowledge
it's fun to
and
share
for everybody.
and talk to neighbors, your friends, your
Yeah,
neighbors. I got a lot of them too.
totally. The whole new
Yeah,
world
there
out
is,
there.
and it never ends. Well, thank you very much.
Awesome.
It's nice to meet
Totally.
everybody.
Thank you.
Hear what
Thank
you're
you,
going through.
Catherine. Thank you
Thanks
so
a
much.
lot.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks,
care, everybody.
everyone.
Be well, stay well.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Z from Yonkers Public Library. Thanks so much to Sally Pinto and Alexis and Barbara from Newark. Thank you to our community partners, WJCS, the City of Yonkers Office for the Aging, Westchester County Legislator Ruth Walter, Friends of Crestwood Library, and Yonkers Public Library for making this phenomenal partnership. And we thank each and every one of you for being part of our wellness community. Be well, stay well.